Today, the 29th of June 2014, was a special day for Organizing for Action in Indiana. We are the grassroots organization supporting President Barack Obama, and today a number of our volunteers went to the ancestral home of Barack's mother, Ann Dunham, known as Dunham House, which is located in Tipton County in rural Indiana, which is about 40 miles north of Indianapolis. The house is owned by Sean Clements, and Sean has been a strong supporter of the President's ancestral connections with the state of Indiana. During Barack's first presidential campaign in 2008, Sean hosted the then Senator Obama and Michelle to Dunham House, an event which is still well remembered by his campaign supporters here from the 2008 campaign. Sean has researched the family connections from Barack Obama all the way back to our first president, George Washington. Because of the family links between Obama and Washington, it seemed appropriate to decorate the grounds of Dunham House with plants and flowers transplanted from Mount Vernon, George Washington's ancestral home in Virginia. Today, our OFA volunteers, as well as friends and supporters of Dunham House, came to plant the seedlings from Mount Vernon, and the following video captures the opening remarks from Sean Clements and some images of our volunteers at work.
Meet you yet, I'm Sean Clements. I've owned the house and have for about 10 years now. Today's a very special day. We have a lot of special people here. We have State Representative Terry Gooden, come all the way from southern Indiana. Thank you for coming up. Appreciate it. Family came up. Members of OFA, Organizing for Action, the President's grassroots organization is here. They're going to help out. And some family and friends are here as well. What we have here today is we've got about 60 plants that we brought in for this first turn from Mount Vernon, the home of George Washington. These are plants that have actually come from his soil that have been transferred here. So these are the real deal. When we first thought about doing this about 3 years ago, it was there's a lot of politics to this and getting through all this stuff, as you guys well know.
Really?
And there was some turnover with Mount Vernon and getting to know those people and so forth. So we finally got a hold of someone who ran the nursery there. We discussed the situation with them back in February, and they took a Google Earth photo of the house and the surroundings, and we gave them the measurements and everything. So the actual landscape plan that we'll be doing today is from their experts. They picked the plants, what they thought would grow in the shade and in this type of soil around here in the milk house, what ones would grow more in the shaded areas as well as sun areas. So this is not just throwing some plants from Lowe's in the ground. These are the real deal. And so we have the landscape plan here. Where they are laid out is exactly where the plants are going to go. In the fall, we'll have another group of plants coming in that are a little different than these. These are more of a summer, spring type. And so the plan was that we have something blooming out here most of the year. Things that don't bloom in the fall with these plants with the other ones. If you're here today, that's great. But remember, planting is an ongoing process. To volunteer throughout the year to pull weeds or whatever we have to do. Sometime in the fall, we'll have another one of these. And then they are going to send us some seeds that will germinate, which we've got a master gardener here today I'm talking with, so we're in good hands. Some of the plants that we have are, we have some irises, we have some butterfly weed, we have some baptisia, some black-eyed Susans, we have a peony plant, we have some, two different types of irises. So you'll see some lambs here, out here, some things that you'll be familiar with. And we'll put some folks on the sign. We have some petunias there also that we're going to kind of sporadically space in the dirt there around the side. And please be careful, there's a wire in there for my solar powered light there that we'll chop that too. Everything pretty much goes in. I'm going to have my master gardener kind of walk around and say, that's too deep, that's okay. The only thing I think we have to be careful of is irises. We don't sink the bulbs.
No, those you want to
about a third of the way up so they don't get too buried in there. Other than that, I think we're ready to have at it after we're planted. We've got bags of mulch in the back of the truck that we'll bring in and start filling in around those plants. The significance of this was 3 years ago. We had talked about bringing plants from a lot of different presidential estates, like Monticello as well as Mount Vernon, and the hermitage and so forth. But then when we start talking about the connection of President Obama to President Washington, it was just too good to pass up to make them exclusively Mount Vernon, and Mount Vernon was really good about working with us on this. We have charts inside that we'll take a look at later, but President Obama is related to President Washington in two different ways, through his great-grandmother. One of those lines actually passes through this house with the Dunham family. In fact, the president does have a fourth great-grandfather named George Washington Overall from Kentucky. Huh. So we have a lot of connections with the Washington family. One of the great things, too, is the common ancestor that's very important in all of this is John Washington, who left England and came to the United States, or the American colonies at the time in the 1600s. And the land that is now Mount Vernon is the land that he originally purchased in the 1600s, which got handed down, and so George Washington took that over in the 1700s. So there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of history here with the Native Americans known as the Miami, who were here originally throughout the 1600s, 1700s. The pioneer family of the Dunhams that came out in 1849. And so we have a lot of history out here, and thank you all for coming. I'd like to turn it over to Representative Gooden. You may have a few words.
All right, well, I want to say thank you for inviting me here. It's absolutely the historical significance of the home, and then the lineage also of Washington, and it only makes sense that connection then with Mount Vernon and then the Dunham estate here in Indiana. So, as I said before, historical homes, especially from presidential lineage, they grow, and the importance of those homes grow exponentially as time moves on. Most of the time, those things don't happen while the president's in office, and sometimes it can get frustrating because, wait a minute, this guy's the president. You mean you can? But what happens is, as time marches on, and the history of the home will become even more significant, and then, as I said, it'll grow exponentially with the importance and also the popularity. So, what you're doing is very important, Sean. I'm going to give you a hand for you to take interest and for you to move this forward tremendously. It's a tremendous effort, and it's a lot of work, and I say thank you. So with that, I'll close and say thank you all for being here. Very, very important. And what better setting, and someone said before here, standing beside Old Glory as we talk about planting plants from George Washington.
That's right. That's
one
right.
of the first president to the current president. So that can't be any better than that on Sunday afternoon. So.
I want to thank Terry again real quick. He was the one who actually brought up the resolution for the Indiana General Assembly. For those of you who didn't know, they passed a resolution recognizing the House here just a few months ago. So he was a big part of it. So I want to thank him for that personally as well.
And here we see the results of some of our efforts. Following all well-run volunteer events, there must be some food and refreshments. Today we had a cake decorated for the occasion, also cupcakes and cookies, all in the red, white and blue colors of the flag. And here we see Sean Clements cutting the cake.